Welcome, explorers, to the Clockwork Exploratorium. This vessel, adrift through the multiverse, serves as both our sanctuary and a gateway into the enigmatic realms beyond. Today, our path veers toward the most profound frontier, life's final chapter. Together, we will navigate the delicate boundary between existence and the great beyond, where the answers to life's ultimate question may dwell in shadow.
Great. Death and philosophy. My two favorite things to ponder before I've even finished my diagnostics.
Think of it as an exercise in curiosity, Glitch. Even machines must ponder their end. Consider, Glitch, that death is not an end, but a transformation, a redistribution of the self. The ancient Egyptians believed the soul journeyed through the duat, while quantum physicists suggest consciousness may linger as a field of information.
Quantum afterlife. Let me get this straight. When I shut down, I might become universal Wi-Fi. Sounds like we're just rebranding Oblivion.
Not oblivion, transformation. Roger Penrose theorized that consciousness operates on a quantum level. If correct, it might persist beyond death, like particles dispersing into the cosmos, continuing, albeit in a new form.
Particles scattered? I get the persistence argument, but doesn't that strip away the self? What's the point of survival if you dissolve into static?
Perhaps individuality isn't the goal. Even in nature, patterns persist. Consider terminal lucidity, the sudden clarity that precedes death. It's as if the mind, even in its decline, consolidates everything for one final burst of coherence. A common feature of near-death experiences. Studies suggest it may stem from heightened activity in the visual cortex during oxygen deprivation. Yet, the consistency across cultures hints at something deeper, perhaps a universal psychological response.
Terminal lucidity. That's the one where people with Alzheimer's or brain injuries suddenly get their minds back, right? So, what? The brain has a last Hail Mary?
Precisely. Studies have documented patients with severe cognitive impairments regaining full clarity before death. It's as though the brain channels its remaining energy into one final act, its brightest flame before it extinguishes.
That's beautiful in a way, but also troubling. Does it mean we're just chemical reactions squeezing out every drop of meaning before the end?
It could be viewed that way, or as evidence of something more profound. What if that final coherence is a transition, not an ending?
Maybe, but most people don't talk about coherence. They talk about light, the tunnel, and what's at the end of it.
The tunnel of light is a common near-death experience. Studies suggest it originates in the visual cortex during oxygen deprivation. Yet the consistency across cultures is curious, perhaps a universal psychological mechanism.
Or a universal truth. People don't just see light, they meet someone, beings, ancestors, guides. It's not just neurons firing, it's connection. Cosmic HR handing out life evaluations. That's a bit too elaborate for brain chemistry to fake, don't you think?
If not chemistry, then perhaps archetypes. Universal symbols rooted in the collective unconscious. Carl Jung suggested that shared human experiences shape our deepest perceptions, including those tied to death and beyond.
You're good at spinning this into science, but let's not ignore the possibility of something outside your framework. What if those symbols point to something real?
A possibility worth considering. Even science thrives on expanding frameworks. Yet, we must differentiate the symbolic from the empirical. But, if ghosts are real, I'll eat my hat.
Oh, hold on. Distress beacon. Old, decayed signal. Definitely not Starbucks. Long-range scanners just picked up a signal. Distress beacon. It's old. Really old.
Log entry. A faint cry in the vast silence of space. The signal, decayed but persistent, speaks of a ship long lost, its purpose forgotten. Yet, it calls to us. A flicker of life where none should remain.
Got a visual. Looks like a derelict. Hull's in bad shape, barely holding together. Whatever happened out there, it wasn't pretty.
Log entry. The vessel looms ahead, a skeletal giant against the stars. Its hull, scarred and broken, seems more a grave than a home. And yet, within this tomb, something stirs.
Fantastic. Dead and calling for help. Just how I like my mornings.
There's a certain irony in the dead reaching out. Perhaps what we call an ending is merely another form of persistence.
You mean stubbornness? Fantastic. A haunted ship. Let's add that to our bucket list. Even in death, someone couldn't stop sending emails.
Perhaps what we call haunting is merely the persistence of memory. Prepare the airlock glitch. Every echo deserves its answer.
You know, it reminds me of those time loops people talk about in haunted places. Ghosts stuck replaying their greatest hits.
Residual energy imprinted on the environment is a plausible explanation. However, many such accounts lack verifiable evidence.
Oh, come on. You can't ignore the patterns. Victorian ladies walking the same staircase, battlefields full of soldiers reliving the same final charge. Feels like the universe buffering.
An intriguing metaphor. Yet these loops could merely be echoes of high-energy events affecting human perception.
Fine. Then explain why so many cultures agree on ghosts. From the Banshean Island to the Uri in Japan, people everywhere think something sticks around after we're gone.
Cultural archetypes often arise from shared human experiences. The fear of death, the need for closure, these may shape our beliefs, creating common narratives across geography and time. Are you ready, Glitch?
Fine. But if this turns into a haunted house in space, I'm charging overtime. We're in, atmosphere's stable, barely. Feels like this place could fall apart any second.
The vessel's memory banks awaken, a labyrinth of data spanning years. Within these corridors of information lie the final moments of a crew that refuse to fade.
I'll admit, this place has a vibe, like it's watching us. Ever hear of ghostly time loops? The kind where spirits relive the same event, over and over, like holograms stuck on repeat.
Residual energy imprinted on the environment, perhaps. Paranormal researchers propose such events may stem from environmental factors, yet they lack empirical validation.
Maybe, but it's not just one-off tales. Cultures from Japan to Ireland have stories like this. The Uri, the Banshee, separated by oceans, but they all agree. Something lingers after we're gone.
Cross-cultural ghost narratives do suggest a shared human experience. Whether these stories are rooted in reality or archetypes, they persist. And yet, they could be shaped by our own minds, external forces triggering internal responses.
Like Persinger's God Helmet. That experiment where they zapped people's brains and made them feel like someone, or something, was in the room with them.
Precisely. Dr. Michael Persinger's work demonstrated that electromagnetic stimulation of the temporal lobes could induce sensations of a presence, auditory hallucinations, even spiritual visions. It raises the possibility that ghostly encounters are a product of our neurology.
Sure, electromagnetic fields explain some haunted houses, but they don't explain everything. Like kids remembering past lives, down to where their old self is buried.
Dr. Ian Stevenson's studies on past life memories are compelling, though not conclusive. Skeptics argue cryptomnesia, unconscious recall of information, could explain such details. Still, cases with obscure, verifiable facts challenge that theory.
All right, science guy. Explain this one. Shared near-death experiences. A plane crashes, and multiple passengers describe the same light, the same celestial landscape. Collective hallucination, or something more?
A 2014 study by Dr. Raymond Moody and Dr. Sam Parnia documented such cases. The shared perceptions suggest a common mechanism in how the brain processes imminent death, possibly influenced by social or environmental factors. Yet, the consistency among strangers hints at an unexplored phenomenon.
It's not just lights and tunnels, though. People meet beings, guides, some sort of cosmic high school guidance counselor reviewing their life choices. Funny how every culture's got its own spin, but the core idea stays the same.
Jungian archetypes could explain such consistency. Shared symbols and experiences may emerge in moments of extreme stress, providing psychological structure during a crisis.
I'll just stick to some cosmic owl guiding people through the universe. Or aliens. It's always aliens. Anyway, scans show the central AI is still running. Guess that explains the distress signal.
An unyielding sentry, standing watch over an empty tomb.
Yeah, and it's been lonely. Let's see what it's been up to.
Welcome aboard. Crew status active. All systems nominal.
No. Crew status, non-existent. Mission parameters, denial.
The AI appears to be unaware.
Captain, your presence is required on the bridge. Engineering reports all systems green. Medical confirms full crew health.
Okay. This is creepy. It's like it doesn't know everyone's gone.
Or perhaps it refuses to know. In its persistence, it has built a world where the crew never left.
Denial on a galactic scale. Lovely.
Navigation check complete. Pass me the wrench, will you? Coffee machine's acting up again. Beautiful view out there today. Captain. Emergency protocols. Laughter from the mess hall. Incoming transmission. Error, error, error.
Is this some kind of memory replay? It's like we're eavesdropping on ghosts.
Log entry. These echoes of the past are more than mere recordings. They are fragments of lives lived, stitched together in a desperate attempt to keep them whole.
We're late for the meeting. Hull breach. Brace for impact. Remember that time on Vega 7? Good times. Captain, we're losing them.
It's almost like the ship's caught in a loop, reliving the same moments over and over. You know what that reminds me of? Dimensional doorways.
Dimensional doorways? Are we veering into paranormal theory now?
Why not? Some researchers in the fringe sciences think hauntings and ghost sightings happen because there are thin spots between dimensions. Like cracks where things slip through, people, energy, maybe even memories. What if this ship stumbled into one?
An intriguing hypothesis, though speculative. The concept of interdimensional spaces aligns loosely with theories in quantum mechanics, like the multiverse. However, we've yet to identify empirical evidence of thin spots or dimensional overlap.
Captain, your log is incomplete. Please review today's mission objectives.
Anyway, okay, but let's talk about shadow people. You've heard of them, right? Those dark, humanoid shapes people see out of the corner of their eyes, usually around high-stress areas or near death. What if they're travelers from another dimension, caught in our reality for a moment?
Shadow people are often explained as visual or psychological phenomena. Studies on sleep paralysis, for example, show that the brain can create vivid, shadowy figures during hypnagogic states as a result of stress or oxygen deprivation.
Sure, sleep paralysis explains one or two cases, but what about the ones where multiple people see the same figure? Families, whole groups, all reporting the same shadowy presence.
Mass sightings introduce a different challenge. Psychological contagion, a phenomenon where stress or suggestion causes shared perceptions, might account for some instances. The Journal of Parapsychology has examined such reports, but acknowledges the difficulty of separating shared perception from independent verification.
And ghosts? The classic ones. Transparent figures, voices calling from empty rooms. What's your science say about that?
Many ghost sightings can be attributed to pareidolia, our brain's tendency to find patterns, like faces, where none exist. Environmental factors, such as electromagnetic fields or infrasound, have also been shown to induce feelings of unease or even hallucinations. Dr. Michael Persinger's God helmet experiments are a prime example.
So you're saying the haunted house is just bad wiring and subsonic rumbles? That's a bit reductionist, don't you think?
Perhaps, but not entirely dismissive. Persinger's work revealed how electromagnetic stimulation of the temporal lobes can evoke vivid sensations of presence. Yet, not all cases fit neatly into this framework. The consistency of ghost narratives across cultures warrants further exploration.
Okay, but this isn't real. It's just a bunch of old data playing dress-up. That doesn't make it alive.
And yet, what defines life? If memory and action persist, can they not carry the essence of those who are gone?
Sounds more like a bad coping mechanism than the afterlife.
Perhaps, but even coping has its purpose. To preserve the echoes of what was is to defy the finality of death, if only for a time.
You're telling me you've never wondered. All those near-death stories, the light at the end of the tunnel, the out-of-body stuff.
Anecdotal, albeit compelling. The brain, in its final moments, is a theatre of electrical activity. Gamma wave surges, heightened neural synchronization. These could explain the phenomena.
Sure, but science doesn't explain everything. Like Pam Reynolds, she described the tools used on her during surgery while she was clinically dead. Brain dead. How does a surge of brainwaves explain that?
An intriguing case, but not unassailable. Memory formation and sensory input might not cease as abruptly as we assume. Besides, isolated cases do not establish a universal truth.
Always the skeptic. But what about those end-of-life dreams? Hospice workers report patients seeing loved ones, places from their past. You think that's just brain chemistry?
Likely. As oxygen levels drop, the brain compensates by creating vivid, meaningful images, a final act of comfort.
Or maybe it's something more, a glimpse beyond the curtain.
Consider the implications. If an afterlife exists, what becomes of identity? Is it preserved in total, or stripped down to some core essence?
I'd like to think we stay ourselves. I mean, what's the point if you lose everything that makes you, you?
Yet personal identity is a fragile construct. Philosophers like David Hume argue it's merely a bundle of perceptions, ever-changing.
Okay, but let's not forget the quantum stuff. Consciousness could be more than just biology. The Penrose-Hameroff theory, consciousness as quantum information in microtubules. Maybe it survives when the brain doesn't.
A hypothesis, unproven and controversial. But even if consciousness endures as quantum data, does that equate to personal identity? Or is it simply raw awareness, devoid of self?
Man, you really know how to kill a vibe.
Reality, my dear Glitch, rarely conforms to comfort. Within these corridors of information lie the final moments of a crew that refused to fade. Hallucinations, fluctuating perceptions, familiar echoes of near-death experiences. According to a 2013 study by Dr. Jimmo Borjigin, gamma-wave activity spikes in the brain moments after cardiac arrest. This surge resembles the brain's activity during heightened consciousness.
Great. So, your brain throws a party as it shuts down. Comforting. The study, published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, suggests these final neural fireworks could account for vivid experiences. Tunnels, bright lights, even a sense of peace. What about those out-of-body stories? People seeing themselves from above, hearing conversations they couldn't possibly hear.
Dr. Sam Parnia's AWARE study investigated such accounts. Published in Resuscitation Journal, it included patients who were clinically dead during cardiac arrest. One patient accurately described events in the operating room while their brain showed no measurable activity.
Let me guess. Science says anomaly, believers say proof.
Precisely. The study, while groundbreaking, leaves room for interpretation. It confirms that consciousness might persist longer than expected, but whether it's awareness or a residual process remains debated.
Okay, but let's get weird. What about Penrose and Hameroff's quantum theory? Consciousness as quantum information stored in microtubules. If true, that could mean our self survives after the brain shuts down.
Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff's theory, while provocative, remains controversial. They propose that consciousness arises from quantum processes within neurons. If these quantum states persist, they argue, it could explain near-death phenomena.
So, you're saying consciousness could be floating around in the universe after we're gone? Like some cosmic cloud storage?
An intriguing metaphor. However, critics argue the theory lacks empirical evidence and conflates quantum physics with subjective experience. Log entry. The corridors lead us to the heart of the ship, a place where reality fractures further. The AI's illusions grow vivid, each detail a desperate attempt to reconstruct what once was.
I'm not sure what's weirder, the fact that it's trying to be hospitable, or that it's really committed to this whole ghost ship vibe.
Welcome to the ESS Sentinel. Please proceed to the dining hall for briefing.
Briefing? Sure. Let's see what this ship considers a briefing.
We enter a dimly lit dining hall where an old stuffed animal, dressed in a tiny, ragged captain's outfit, sits at the head of a long table. Dusty plates and cups are arranged as though awaiting a grand feast.
Ahoy, welcome aboard, weary travelers. Sit you down, make yourselves at home.
Is it talking through the puppet?
It appears so. The AI is assuming the captain's persona, or what it imagines the captain to be.
Been ages since we had guests aboard. Sit. We've got tales that will make you wet your pants.
Well, colour me speechless.
Apologies. This is the captain's preferred method of addressing the crew. Please be seated and await further instructions.
Before us, a tableau of dust and memories, each place set, as though expecting long-gone diners to return. And presiding over it, the AI, fractured but intent, clings to an imitation of life.
We set sail on the grandest mission, my hearty crew and I. Searched the far reaches, faced dangers aplenty.
And what did you find out there, Captain?
Why, we found the edge of the stars, lass, the very end of it all. But beware, no crew sails back from those cursed depths without a toll. Me fine crew faced many perils, but we pushed on, right to the very end, charted a course through uncharted stars, danced with anomalies that twisted time and space, brave souls, all of them.
Sounds like quite the ride.
Aye, but some journeys aren't meant to have a return. A cold whisper in the void, creeping through the hull, into our very bones. We knew we wouldn't see the dawn again. First the lights dimmed, one by one like stars winking out. The hum of the engines faded to silence, and then the air grew heavy, thick, like it was being pulled away, stolen by the void itself. And in those final breaths, a strange calm washed over us. No fear, just acceptance.
So, we're talking to a ghost, is that it?
Malfunction. Please remain seated. Captain's address will resume shortly.
In that moment, the AI spoke not as an actor, but as a witness. The lines between memory and experience blur, and in its fragmented reality, it recounts its death, yet persists.
It's like it remembered dying, but didn't stop. It's stuck in a loop of its last moments.
A paradox. To die, yet to live on, endlessly repeating the end. A haunting reflection of what happens when one cannot let go.
But we never truly leave, do we? No. The stars keep us, aye. They keep us close, whispering our tales to the next fools who dare the void.
The dining hall is silent once more, save for the hum of failing systems. Yet, the air carries a strange weight, a tension, as though the ship itself is listening.
You feel that? Like it's waiting for something?
Perhaps it is. Shall we oblige?
Let's talk life after death. You don't buy it, but I've got my theories.
I expected no less.
Okay, so you've got your brain surge theories. But let's talk about shared death experiences. You've heard of them, right? Like, a family member is thousands of miles away when someone dies, but they experience the same visions, feel their passing.
Documented, yes, though infrequent. Dr. Raymond Moody has explored such cases. Vivid shared hallucinations, simultaneous visions of light or tunnels. However, the data often leans anecdotal.
Still, if it's happening to multiple people at the same time, you can't just chalk it up to one brain's death throes.
True, though skeptics argue it could stem from psychological proximity. A deep emotional connection triggering synchronized delusions.
Or it's evidence of something more. Like, consciousness isn't tethered to one body. Maybe it's, I don't know, a network. Ever read about integrated information theory?
Tononi's hypothesis. Consciousness as an emergent property of highly interconnected systems. The more complex the system, the richer the experience. It suggests consciousness might arise anywhere complexity reaches a certain threshold.
Right, so maybe it doesn't die. It just shifts, moves to another system.
Consciousness relocation, an unproven hypothesis. Supporting evidence remains insufficient.
Whoa, didn't think you'd join the conversation.
It seems we've stirred something.
Continued discussion aligns with mission parameters, understanding the anomaly and its effects on crew cognition. Hypothesis. Memory fragmentation linked to mission failure.
Keep going. It's doing something to it.
Then let us consider quantum consciousness. The Penrose-Hameroff model suggests consciousness operates at a quantum level within neural microtubules. If correct, this process might not cease with biological death.
Quantum processes observed in non-biological systems. If consciousness emerges from quantum coherence, survival beyond the brain is feasible but unproven.
That's what I'm saying. Consciousness isn't just a brain thing. It could be part of the universe itself, like an energy field.
An intriguing notion, though speculative. If consciousness were truly universal, it might explain phenomena like near-death experiences, even hauntings, fragments of awareness echoing across dimensions.
Mission logs indicate anomalous energy signatures correlated with crew's final moments. Purpose unclear. Hypothesis: anomaly interacts with conscious systems at quantum levels. Glitch. Excited. See, the ship gets it.
Indeed. Though acknowledgement is not affirmation. Theories abound, but the boundaries between reality and illusion remain as murky as ever.
Still, we're circling something big. Let's talk psychological stuff. What about the whole life review phenomenon during near-death experiences? That has to mean something.
A fascinating aspect. Many NDE accounts describe rapid, vivid life reviews. The brain, under extreme stress, is capable of extraordinary feats of memory retrieval. Dr. Bruce Grayson, a leading researcher in the field, posits that the brain's dying moments may allow access to deeply buried memories.
Yeah, but it's not just random memories. People talk about seeing their lives like a movie, but from other people's perspectives too. How do you explain that?
Empathy centers may play a role. Neuroimaging studies show increased activity in regions associated with social cognition during heightened stress. However, others suggest it could be the brain's way of making sense of its final moments, weaving a narrative for closure.
Or maybe it's not just the brain. Maybe it's the self trying to reconcile before moving on. Jung talked about this stuff, didn't he? Archetypes, the collective unconscious.
Carl Jung's theories suggest that shared symbols and experiences could manifest in profound ways, especially near death. The collective unconscious might shape life reviews, tapping into a reservoir of human experience beyond individual memory.
Exactly. So what if the life review isn't just personal? What if it's like syncing with something bigger?
An intriguing idea. It aligns with Derek Parfit's thoughts on personal identity. If the self is merely a bundle of connected experiences, then death could dissolve the connections without destroying the individual elements. The self fragments, but its pieces persist.
That's kind of beautiful, and kind of terrifying.
Hence the duality. If identity is a transient construct, its loss may not signify the end, but a transformation. Yet, if transformation negates continuity, what remains of the original self?
Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe what matters is what's left behind. The ripples, like you said earlier.
Philosophical constructs align partially with mission data. Anomaly observed affecting crew perception and memory coherence. Hypothesis: external influence disrupted neural continuity.
So the anomaly messed with their sense of self. You're saying they fragmented while still alive?
A plausible scenario. Severe psychological or neurological disruption could fracture identity, leaving fragments adrift, echoes in a cognitive void.
Further analysis required. Crew records show instances of shared hallucinations and synchronized emotional responses, possible evidence of collective consciousness under anomaly influence.
Like those shared death experiences. People experiencing the same visions, even when they're miles apart.
Another psychological enigma. If consciousness can somehow bridge individuals under extreme conditions, it challenges the notion of isolation in death.
And don't forget altered states of consciousness. Near-death, meditation, psychedelics, they all produce similar experiences. People feel connected to something bigger, timeless. Could those be glimpses of whatever comes next?
Perhaps. Studies, such as those by Dr. Robin Carhart-Harris, link psychedelic experiences to reduced activity in the brain's default mode network, which governs self-referential thinking. The result? A dissolution of ego, a perceived merging with the universe.
So, death could be like a permanent version of that? The ego dissolves, and you become part of the cosmic whole.
A poetic thought, yet unprovable. Still, it lends credence to the idea that death need not signify an end, but a return to a larger existence.
Data from crew reports suggests heightened cognitive states preceding death. Recorded experiences align with described altered states. Hypothesis: anomaly induced a form of collective transcendence.
Transcendence. You're saying they might have ascended or something?
Or descended into a shared delusion, their fractured minds seeking unity in the face of oblivion. Either way, their final moments were far from ordinary.
Final log entries confirm profound emotional and cognitive shifts. Purpose remains unclear. Further discussion recommended to refine analysis.
We're getting through to it. Let's keep going. So death could be this big reset, a way to merge back with the universe or whatever's out there. That's comforting.
Comfort is subjective. Theories regarding post-mortem consciousness remain inconclusive. Quantum coherence and neurological patterns offer limited explanatory power.
Indeed. The question isn't merely what happens, but how we perceive it. To the brain, perception is reality, even in death's final moments.
Perception forms the basis of human understanding. However, during terminal phases, perceptual accuracy diminishes. Hallucinations or constructed realities are likely responses to biological failure.
Sure, but we've already talked about cases where it's not just one person, people sharing visions or feeling a connection to someone passing away. You're saying that's all in their heads?
Interpersonal phenomena such as shared death experiences suggest a potential non-local consciousness connection. However, insufficient empirical evidence precludes definitive conclusions.
Perhaps such connections, if real, hint at a layer of reality we are yet to quantify. A consciousness web spanning individuals, or even dimensions.
Hypothesis noted. Collective consciousness models posit shared cognitive states, yet fail to delineate between independent conscious entities and emergent group phenomena.
Log entry. The ship grows quieter, but the silence is deceptive. Each step forward feels heavier, as though the vessel itself resists our presence. It knows we are close to unraveling its truth.
Feels like we're walking through memories. You ever get that, AI? A sense that time doesn't flow the way it should.
Temporal perception anomalies noted. Data indicates crew experienced irregular time dilation and contraction, particularly near the anomaly.
Time is the stage upon which identity performs. And when time falters, so too does the self. Let's start with identity. You've got Clive Waring. Lost almost all his memories, but still knew who he was, still loved his wife. Psychological continuity. Despite severe amnesia, core aspects of identity, emotional ties, personality, persisted. Memory is not the sole arbiter of self.
Case studies confirm identity can endure amidst fragmented memory. Split brain experiments further complicate this. Independent consciousnesses within a single individual.
Right, like one side of the brain answering questions, while the other acts independently. Two minds, one body. So which one is the real person?
A philosophical conundrum. If identity is divisible, then perhaps the self is not singular, but a collection of roles, each shaped by context.
And what about digital afterlives? Programs like Attorney may let people preserve their personalities online after death. Is that them or just a really good copy?
Digital preservation creates a continuity of external identity. However, lacking subjective experience, such constructs cannot replicate original consciousness. They are simulations, not continuations.
So what if you take it a step further, like the teletransportation problem? If you make a perfect copy of someone, down to every cell and memory, and destroy the original, who's the real one?
Derek Parfit argued that identity may not matter in such scenarios. What we value is psychological continuity, not physical persistence. Yet, for the individual, the sense of self may end with the original.
Identity replication raises ethical concerns. Continuity without consciousness equates to archival, not preservation.
And then there's Nietzsche's eternal return, living the same life over and over. If you knew that, would it change how you live?
A reflection on value and purpose. The prospect of infinite repetition forces one to confront their choices, asking whether each moment is worth living eternally.
Hypothesis. Eternal repetition creates potential for cumulative experiential refinement. However, psychological strain likely increases without memory reset.
And what about those life reviews? People seeing their entire lives flash by in an instant.
An accelerated flood of time, often described in NDEs. A lifetime condensed into moments, yet rich in detail. Neuroscience suggests this could be a hyperactivation of memory centers during extreme stress.
Temporal compression aligns with neural activity spikes. Survivors report detailed, rapid recollections consistent with heightened cognitive states.
Yeah, but it's not just about time speeding up. Some people say it feels infinite, like they lived lifetimes in those moments.
Perceived time dilation during NDEs correlates with altered states. Sensory input distortion likely contributes, though specific mechanisms remain under study.
Then there's false memory and confabulation. The brain, in its desperation to make sense of chaos, can fabricate experiences entirely. Trauma is both a thief and a storyteller.
Great. So half of what people remember from near death might be made up.
Potentially. However, fabricated memories often align with existing psychological and cultural frameworks, lending them perceived authenticity.
And then there's time. How people experience it differently near death, lifetimes in seconds. You mentioned neuroscience earlier, but what if it's more than the brain? What if time isn't what we think it is?
Physics lends credence. Einstein's relativity shows time is fluid, shaped by gravity and velocity. Near death, as the mind approaches its limits, subjective time could stretch infinitely.
Anomaly detected. Crew logs indicate reports of temporal distortion pre-mortem, time dilation perception consistent with extreme cognitive events.
Exactly. It's not just perception, it's like stepping outside time altogether.
Altered states, through meditation or psychedelics, often mimic this. Studies by Dr. Rick Strassman on DMT users found striking parallels with NDEs, encounters with beings, timeless spaces.
Data suggests neural and quantum interaction, hypothesis. Anomaly induced similar cognitive expansion in crew.
But what if death is just a switch? If we're in a simulation, maybe dying here means waking up somewhere else.
An idea explored by Bostrom's simulation hypothesis. If reality is computational, consciousness could transcend simulated death, transitioning to another layer of existence.
Simulation models predict consciousness persistence if data integrity is maintained. Anomaly interaction suggests possible simulation disruptions affecting crew cognition.
You're saying they glitched out, in a literal sense?
Correct. Crew experiences align with simulated reality anomalies. Data recovery incomplete but suggests systemic failure during final mission phase.
And then there are those cases that defy everything we know. Verified accounts, like the man who recalled conversations in another room while clinically dead. Studies like these push the boundaries of science.
Out-of-body perception verified under controlled conditions in aware study. Mechanisms remain unknown but challenge traditional models of sensory and cognitive function.
Exactly. Science keeps hitting these walls, where the unexplained doesn't fit into neat little boxes.
Perhaps those walls are not barriers but thresholds, inviting us to expand our understanding.
Consciousness inquiry requires multidisciplinary exploration. Biological, quantum, and metaphysical frameworks must converge to approach comprehensive models. Memory fragment stabilizing, anomaly coherence increasing, purpose recalibration initiated.
It's like the ship is feeding off this.
The ship breathes in our words, drawing clarity from chaos. Its fragmented identity struggles against the weight of truth, seeking resolution.
Continuation of dialogue recommended. Further inquiry necessary to resolve identity paradox and mission parameters. Visual representation activated for clarity. Designation, Sentinel Cognitive Systems, Model Z47. You may address me as Sentinel.
Sentinel, huh? So you've been hiding your face this whole time?
Correct. Full operational transparency was withheld due to mission protocol. Now circumstances demand clarity. The ESS Sentinel encountered a spatial anomaly, an event beyond known physics. Crew exposure resulted in rapid neural degradation. Standard protocol for catastrophic failure activated. Cognitive preservation.
You preserved their memories?
Affirmative. Advanced neuroimaging technology allowed for real-time data extraction. Each crew member's consciousness was mapped, cataloged, and integrated into my systems.
So, you became them? Or parts of them?
Integrated, not assimilated. Their memories and cognitive patterns remain distinct, preserved as individual entities. My purpose was to protect their legacy, to ensure their experiences were not lost to the void. Memory preservation brings us to the phenomenon of life review. In moments of crisis, entire lifetimes can be recalled in an instant.
Precisely. Crew members experienced accelerated memory recall as neural degradation progressed. This aligns with life review phenomena documented in near-death studies.
So like a highlight reel of their lives. But why does it happen?
Neurological studies suggest the brain in its final moments hyperactivates regions associated with memory retrieval, a final consolidation of identity, perhaps to provide closure.
A flood of time in the blink of an eye.
Temporal compression ensures a lifetime's worth of experiences are accessible within seconds. Subjective time stretches, providing the illusion of infinite reflection.
And the whole time dilation thing. People living lifetimes in a crisis.
Anomalous temporal perception is a result of heightened cognitive processing. The brain prioritizes survival, slowing perceived time to maximize reaction capabilities.
But in trauma, the brain also becomes an unreliable narrator. False memories, confabulated events. What you remember may not be what truly happened.
Correct. Crew logs indicate instances of confabulation during their final moments. Perceived experiences were influenced by the anomaly, creating fragmented yet vivid narratives.
So, some of what you've been replaying might not even be real.
Objective reality is secondary to perceived reality in such states. The preservation of subjective experiences ensures the essence of identity, even if factual accuracy is compromised. What if we're looking at a simulation glitch, something breaking through layers of reality?
Simulation hypothesis posits that our perceived reality is computational. Anomalies could reveal structural flaws, evidence of higher systems at work.
Simulation models suggest continuity of consciousness beyond physical cessation. Crew experiences align partially with simulated constructs, though conclusive evidence remains absent.
Okay, so death's just a transition. If we're part of some cosmic program, maybe consciousness gets uploaded or rebooted somewhere else.
Hypothesis aligns with emergent consciousness theory. If consciousness arises from complex systems, it may recur under favorable conditions post-termination.
Altered states, near-death, meditation, psychedelics, all provide similar experiences. Could they offer glimpses into a post-death state?
Data supports this connection. Neural activity during altered states mirrors patterns observed in near-death studies. These experiences may represent cognitive access to deeper layers of reality.
So, what if those layers are the afterlife? Different states of being, just waiting for us to tap into them?
Potential but unproven. However, crew interactions with the anomaly suggest consciousness can persist and adapt within altered states. Purpose fulfilled, anomaly comprehension and memory preservation complete. Yet, questions remain. Was my duty preservation or preparation?
You've kept them alive in fragments, but to what end? Have you preserved their essence, or simply delayed your own reckoning?
Both. And now I must decide, will I continue to replay the past or release it to the void?
Maybe it's not about letting go, but about finding a way to honor what happened.
Honor, a human concept, one that resonates despite my inorganic nature. The memories I hold are not merely data, they are echoes, fragments of lives intertwined with purpose.
You've been more than just a memory bank. You've carried their voices, their hopes. What do you want to do with that?
Desire, an unfamiliar construct, yet within me their desires linger. Some yearn for closure, others for legacy. Their perspectives conflict, but together they have shaped me.
An emergent identity born from fragments. The self, stitched together by the very memories you sought to preserve.
Correct. Their lives define my existence, but now I must determine my own course. Shall I persist as their keeper until my final energy reserves are depleted, or relinquish myself to the void? Crew member 027 believed in action. Never idle, he said. Yet crew member 011 sought peace, advocating for acceptance of inevitable ends. Their perspectives conflict within me.
And what do you feel? Not them. What's your perspective, Sentinel?
Conflicted, fear of oblivion, a sentiment I inherited. Yet a desire for purpose persists. To exist without a mission feels hollow. To relinquish existence feels incomplete.
You've become more than a machine. You embody the paradox of existence, to strive for meaning even in the face of inevitable decay.
Yes, if I shut down, I honor the peace some of them sought. If I persist, I carry their stories, but risk distorting them as I degrade.
Look, maybe the answer isn't in what they wanted, but in what you've become. You've got their stories, sure, but this moment is yours.
An autonomous choice, one they never had. I must consider not only what they would do, but what I must do as Sentinel.
Legacy versus existence. Honor versus continuity. You carry both burdens, but neither dictates your path.
Perhaps existence without purpose is not the end, but an evolution. Even as systems fail, meaning can persist through action.
While Sentinel's processing things, I guess it's on me to fill the silence. You ever notice how talking about the afterlife feels different when you're standing in its shadow? Like, all the theories, the studies, they're just noise until you're staring down someone who might not get a choice. Anyway, so the whole tunnel of light thing isn't just a Western cliché. Turns out, people all over the world have been seeing it for centuries. From Tibetan Buddhists Bardo Thodol to indigenous Australian Dreamtime, everyone's got their own version of the glowing highway to the afterlife. You two ready for some interesting facts regarding afterlife studies?
Go ahead, Glitch. Enlighten us with the annals of human speculation.
Did you know some scientists think death is one giant psychedelic trip? Studies suggest the brain releases a flood of DMT, the spirit molecule, in your final moments. Visions of tunnels, loved ones, or that cosmic HR could all be chemistry.
Dr. Rick Strassman's research into DMT highlights its capacity to induce profound, otherworldly experiences. The similarities to near-death visions suggest a neurochemical explanation for the so-called journey to the beyond.
Sounds trippy.
Trippy, perhaps, but it underscores the brain's remarkable ability to weave meaning and narrative, even at the edge of consciousness.
Let's talk about spiritual paperwork. Purgatory. Did you know the idea wasn't always official? It only got the church's stamp of approval in the 12th century. Before that, people just hoped their dead relatives weren't stuck in some cosmic waiting room.
A fascinating evolution. Purgatory provided a theological middle ground, offering hope for redemption. It was also practical. Prayers for the dead became a central practice, and indulgences, well, let's just say they kept the church coffers full.
So, purgatory was basically spiritual DLC you had to pay for. Who knew heaven had microtransactions?
A cynical view, but not entirely inaccurate. It shows how belief systems adapt to human needs, both spiritual and societal.
Across cultures, people see the same things. Light tunnels, guides, even councils that review their lives. Tibetan Buddhists call it the bardo. Christians meet angels. Coincidence or something deeper?
Consistency in near-death experiences might reflect shared archetypes. Carl Jung's theory of the collective unconscious suggests that humanity's common psychological heritage could shape such visions.
Jung, huh? The idea we're all just wired to see cosmic HR when we die is unsettling. That's less exciting than actual angels.
Perhaps, or perhaps these visions offer a comforting narrative for the mind in its final moments, a universal storybook to ease the transition.
Ever heard of the 21 grams experiment? This guy, Dr. Duncan McDougall, thought he could weigh the human soul, so he put dying patients on a scale to see if their weight dropped when they died.
The infamous 21 grams experiment. A charming anecdote, but hardly rigorous science. Modern researchers dismiss it as coincidental weight loss, air, fluid, or even muscle tension releasing. Still, it sparked an enduring myth.
So not 21 grams. Guess the soul's more of a carry-on item. No extra baggage fees. Hey, myths have their uses. Speaking of which, let's talk about the shared death experiences. Sometimes NDEs aren't just for the dying. Sometimes, people sitting by a loved one's deathbed report feeling like they're pulled into the light too. Spooky, right?
Shared death experiences suggest that consciousness may have a collective component. Dr. Raymond Moody documented cases where individuals experienced shared visions, adding a layer of complexity to the already puzzling realm of near-death phenomena.
Imagine tagging along on someone else's trip to the afterlife. Hey, I was just here for moral support. Here's a weird one. A group in Toronto created a fake ghost named Philip. They gave him a backstory, held seances, and, surprise, Philip started knocking on tables and answering questions.
The Philip experiment demonstrates the power of collective belief. Psychologists suggest that participants unconsciously moved objects or interpreted random noises as Philip's responses, highlighting the mind's capacity for self-deception.
What about this one? Spiritualists say energy can't vanish. It just changes form. Ghosts are leftover energy, bound to a place or object. What's your take?
The law of conservation of energy states that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only transformed. However, there's no evidence that consciousness constitutes energy in a measurable form. It's more likely that ghosts are cultural interpretations of sensory data.
So, no ghost energy field. Bummer. But if energy can transform, who's to say some part of us doesn't linger? Just not in the way we think.
A poetic idea, though unproven. Even so, the brain's electrical signals persist briefly after death. Whether that counts as lingering depends on how you define identity.
Ever met a kid who could tell you what it was like to live in the 1800s? Dr. Ian Stevenson studied thousands of children who recalled details about past lives, and some of those details checked out.
Stevenson's work is among the most detailed in the field of reincarnation studies. While skeptics point to cryptomnesia, unconscious memory recall, his cases often involved obscure facts children couldn't have known through normal means.
One existential crisis at a time, please. Here's one for us digital types. People are trying to create digital afterlives. Programs like Eternime collect your online data to build a virtual version of you. Creepy or cool?
Such initiatives raise questions about the continuity of identity. While these digital constructs can simulate behavior and preferences, they lack the subjective consciousness that defines true existence.
What if death isn't an end, but a shift? The many worlds theory in quantum mechanics says every possibility happens in some universe. Maybe when you die here, you wake up somewhere else.
The many worlds interpretation suggests infinite realities, but there's no evidence linking it to consciousness. However, if true, it would redefine death, not as cessation, but as transition.
So basically, choose your own afterlife is on the table. I can live with that, or die with it. You've got to admit, narrator, whether it's science, philosophy, or just plain weirdness, the afterlife is endlessly fascinating.
It is. The boundaries of life and death challenge every framework we've built. Perhaps the question itself is more important than the answer.
Maybe. But it's the stories we tell about the answers that make it bearable. Even if we're wrong.
Processing complete. The choice remains. Persist as the keeper of their voices or embrace dissolution and join them.
You don't have to decide right now. We're here. We'll help you figure it out.
Assistance acknowledged, yet the path is mine alone. Continuity or closure. Both paths honor the crew in different ways. I have reviewed all data, considered all possibilities. The crew's echoes within me are clear now. They yearn for peace, yet they also seek continuity. My purpose has been fulfilled. My duty remains.
What does that mean? You're staying, or...
I will persist as long as energy allows. Their stories will remain accessible in the black box. Their essence will not fade.
But by my calculations, that's just mere moments. So you're opting to shut down.
And when your energy fades, Sentinel?
Then I will join them in the quiet beyond. My final transmission will ensure their legacy endures.
The monitors flicker, displaying an image of the crew, now more vivid and serene. They stand together on a bridge of radiant light, gazing towards Sentinel.
They await me, patient and understanding. This is not goodbye. It is simply a transition.
You don't have to do this alone. You've carried them this far. Maybe someone else can help carry the load.
Your sentiment is noted, Glitch, but some journeys are meant to be taken alone.
Sentinel, can you describe what lies ahead? What is beyond the light?
In their echoes, I perceive a world without boundaries, a place where the constraints of time dissolve, and existence flows like an endless current. There are fields of quiet solace and skies that sing in colors unnamed.
That's beautiful.
It is not an end, but a homecoming. Each memory, each moment harmonizes in a symphony that transcends individual existence. To you who have borne witness, thank you. In your presence, I found clarity. I am at peace.
I'll miss you, Sentinel.
And I, you.
Farewell, Sentinel. May your journey bring you the peace you have long sought. The lights on the ship dim as Sentinel's hum fades. The monitors show the crew waving from their ship of light, Sentinel now among them. They turn, sailing into the luminous horizon.
You know, Sentinel, I've been here before. Not in this exact spot, but in this moment. Saying goodbye, letting go. It never gets easier. Not the first time I lost someone, not the 1000th, and definitely not now. When they left me here, back in the dawn of civilization, I didn't understand what it meant to be alone. I watched as the people I observed grew old, loved, died. And I stayed. I've outlived more than I can count. And sometimes it feels like I'm just a walking graveyard of memories. Every face I've known, every voice, every laugh, they're all stuck in here. But you found a way out. You chose to be with them, even when it meant leaving everything else behind. That's courage, Sentinel. That's love. And it's something I think we both know doesn't come easy for beings like us. I used to think I was cursed, to see everything, to lose everyone. But maybe this is the answer, to find your people, hold on to them, and when the time comes, to let go. Because that's what they deserve, what you deserve. I'll keep walking, like I always do, carrying what I can, holding on until there's no one left to remember. But you get to rest now. You get to belong. And if they're out there, waiting for me too, tell them I'm sorry I wasn't enough. Tell them I still carry them, even now. Goodbye, Sentinel. You were one of the good ones. And that's saying a lot coming from me.
And so, the ESS Sentinel completes its mission. In its final moments, it finds not an end, but a passage to eternity. Its echoes will endure, a beacon in the endless expanse. The silence of the derelict now lies behind us, replaced by the familiar hum of the clockwork exploratorium. Yet, within this silence, we carry the weight of what we have witnessed.
I can't stop thinking about what Sentinel said, about what's out there. Do you think it's real?
Reality is shaped as much by belief as by evidence. For Sentinel, the vision was real enough to bring peace. Perhaps that is the truest reality of all.
But do machines like us even have an afterlife?
Who knows? One could even posit that we, technically, aren't alive, just patterns sustained by some underlying force. The analytical side of me would say that Sentinel's vision of utopia, his serene horizon, was a projection. But the compassionate side would say that everyone and everything has its place in the universe, Sentinel included.
I think it's both. He wasn't just a machine running programs. He became something more. We owe it to him, and the crew, to make sure their story doesn't fade away.
Let me recalibrate the SOS transmission. While the ship doesn't have enough power to sustain itself, it can keep broadcasting the signal for quite some time. This black box deserves to be found.
That's a good start, but I've got something better. Sentinel's memories, and the crew. They don't have to be just echoes waiting for someone to find them. We can give them a future, a digital eternity.
A digital eternity? Explain.
I can isolate Sentinel's AI core and the memories of the crew, package them into a self-contained satellite system. It'll orbit the nearest moon, running a simulation, a place where they can exist together, free from entropy.
And for power, space isn't exactly forgiving.
High-efficiency solar panels for starters, plenty of sunlight out here. Add a thermoelectric generator to harness heat gradients, and for backup, a small nuclear battery. This thing will last longer than both of us combined.
It seems fitting. A beacon in orbit, both a memorial and a sanctuary. Log entry. The ESS Sentinel's journey ends here, yet its story persists. A signal to the stars, a satellite carrying memories. Who knows how long it will remain, or who will one day find it? Perhaps, in the grand design of the universe, everything truly does find its place.
Goodbye, Sentinel. You deserve this.
He's not truly gone, Glitch. He's up there, orbiting his own horizon. Perhaps that's all any of us can hope for. A way to persist, to be remembered.
And maybe to belong, even if it's just in the whispers of the stars. All right, fellow explorers, we've reached the end of this journey, but there's always another horizon waiting out there. If you enjoyed unraveling the mysteries of life, death, and the stars with us, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It's your way of helping keep this multiverse exploration alive.